We are the stars of tomorrow. We are just learning to fly. We are the stars of tomorrow. We are on fire, burning bright. We'll shine for you tonight. Hoping our dreams take flight, driving us to the light. We are the stars. We are the stars. We are the stars tonight.
Like rank, Butlins and its famous redcoats have been going for over 60 years. A British institution which made its founder, Billy Butlin, millions and a Knight of the Realm. Butlins has been in Minehead for 35 years. It opened in 1962, and from the outset, its owner was keen to stress its importance to the local jobs market.
In the building this winter, we've spent about £300,000 on wages. Now, that money's been spent locally. We employ about 150 people here, even in the winter when the camp's finished, and they will be mostly local people. So it must be good for an area.
Today, 1,400 people work at the camp. It's by far the biggest employer in the area. But it's never been able to recruit all the workers it needs from West Somerset. Nearly 1,000 live in. Most are young, unskilled, and from areas of high unemployment. They earn less than £2 an hour.
Just go in the morning, empty the bins, make the beds, and then go back over the 17 shallies that I was in charge of, and then clean the baths, clean the toilets and the mirrors, and put this toilet descaler stuff down there.
And how many days a week did you work?
6 days. From starting at 9 o'clock and then finishing at 4:30.
And was that 6 days a week every week?
Yeah.
So right throughout the season?
Mm.
Were you entitled to any holiday allowance?
No.
A week's holiday for a week's pay? Not according to next year's brochure prices and today's pay rates. The lowest paid live-in worker here would have to work for 10 weeks to pay for a family holiday in the budget accommodation. Paula Rice had risen to the rank of 3-star employee by the time she left this summer. That put her in the middle pay bracket. The lowest paid live-in staff earn £1.62 an hour. A glossy brochure handed out to recruits has detailed instructions on standards expected from staff.
The nature of the work requires close contact with colleagues and customers. The use of a deodorant or antiperspirant is essential.
Wigs and hairpieces for men are not permitted unless they're worn on medical advice of a doctor.
Fingernails should be no longer than 1/4 of an inch beyond the fingertip.
High standards for low pay. The low pay unit described Butlin's pay rates as an example of worst practice in an industry characterised by poverty wages and poor conditions of employment. Ron Newell joined Butlins in 1993. A skilled mechanic by trade, he was taken on as a supervisor and given a key employee contract.
I looked after 2 snooker halls. That was the Beachcomber Games Room, the Boulevard Games Room. At that time, roller skating ring. Any equipment that had got archery equipment, what have you, I repaired it and all the rest of it. Repaired the snooker tables. Had a staff of approximately, be varied like during the season from 6 to 8, occasionally 9. And looked after their welfare as best I could like and worked the rotors out and trained them and what have you.
Mr Newell, who lives in Minehead, was paid £115 for a nominal 39-hour week. The reality was very different.
I'd work approximately, on average, around about 50, 55 hours a week. I had to really, like with the job I'd got, you know, I had no option like to do it.
In 1994, Mr Newell's pay rose to £130 a week. But because he was working in excess of 50 hours, his hourly rate was just over £2.50. Then last year, his pay was cut by £20 a week. What did you say to them?
Well, I couldn't very well put it on the camera, like, you know, because I come from the black country and I'm rather, when I can go in. Well, I told them what to do with the job and that was it. You can't do this, you can't do that. I said, I've done it and that's it, like, I'm off, you know, my contract's up. Right, because that is one of the advantages down there, as I did point out to them. I said, the contracts work both ways when you have a 12-monthly contract. You either sign it or you don't at the end of the 12 months. Well, of course, my contract was up then. That's why it was April, so. So I said, no, I don't sign the contract. I've finished, that's it. You've let us down and all the rest of it, but that's neither here nor there. That's only talk, isn't it? You know.
A recent survey carried out for the Department of National Heritage revealed that the average gross earnings within the holiday industry were 40% below the rest of the service sector. For one group of workers within it, though, that rather depressing statistic doesn't apply. Salaries for senior executives and directors of rank are on a par with their peers. Rank's chief executive, Andrew Tier, has a pay package which, with bonuses, share options and pension contributions, is worth £1 million this year. It would take the lowest paid live-in worker in Minehead over 300 years to earn what Mr Tier does in 12 months. 2 weeks ago, Rank unveiled their £140 million revamp of Butlins, including Minehead. All of the money, we were told, was coming from cash flow, not borrowings. But what, asked one city journalist, would the coming national minimum wage do to their costs?
We are doing the calculations on the national minimum wage, and as I'm sure you'll appreciate, no one as yet knows what the national minimum wage will be. However, we have made allowances within our projections for an effect of the national minimum wage. So all of the projections you'll see does include that. And
what is that figure?
I'd rather not give the Commission a lead on that at this moment in time.
Mr Marshall had reason to be coy. Trades unions and the low pay unit are looking for a minimum wage of well over £4 an hour. That's half the national average, but in many instances more than double Butlin's live-in rate. New live-in staff at Minehead are given a pack detailing skills-related pay. It's based on a star system. The weekly rates begin at £1.62 an hour for 1- and 2-star grades, gradually rising to a maximum of £2.09 for a 5-star employee. The pay rates are so low, the managing director himself couldn't believe it.
My research and discussions with those people who work for me tell me that we do not pay anybody less than £2 an hour.
Well, we work out that one of the people that we've spoken to, and it applies to a broad band of people, the going rate is about £1.62 an hour live-in.
Certainly not to my knowledge. I can't believe that we're paying anybody £1.62 an hour. And as I say, I do see most rates of pay, but again, very difficult to understand because it may include overtime and other payments.
The pay is lower because of the live-in element. How much is that worth? Butlins refused all our requests for details.
The rooms were about 2 metres by 2 metres square boxes they were. So it's just like, you go in and it's just like a box. That's the shape of the room is in a box. You got a heater, a set of drawers and a cupboard. But every time you went into your room, there was this beeping noise. Must have been a sensor in the room. You know, in your chalet, every time you opened the door, it used to go beep, like this beeping noise every time you went in there, and it just really used to do your head in.
West Eye View journalist Jason Holmes, who obtained a job there, was given a similar room.
They were apologetic about it at every stage, in fact. I mean, when I went to the interview at the job centre, the lady who interviewed me there from personnel was sort of apologetic about the state that the accommodation was in, and then in the induction yesterday, again, they were saying, you know, well, we're really sorry about this. We've been meaning to do this up for many years now, and we're going to do it up next year, so do stay with us.
So what was your room like?
Small, and although freshly painted, not massively clean, it's the furnishings which will really let it down. You know, sort of a bed that the personnel described as a fish finger, because it's slightly larger than a bird's eye fish finger, I suppose. It is just so small that rolling over is a perilous thing to do in the night.
The live-in is a benefit. They are paid a rate of pay, and then live-in is taken, accommodation on board that is, as a benefit of that employment. So the calculations on that I couldn't be precise on. I couldn't give you any exact figures. And plus, of course, we will be giving all of that information to the Low Pay Commission, who presently all companies are in dialogue with.
Butlins has always had difficulty recruiting locally the number of staff it needs. 10 years ago, HTV's Jobline spot, aimed at helping the unemployed, reported on the latest recruitment drive from Butlins. The then centre director, like its founder, played the local jobs card.
Last year we started to try and promote heavily into the local schools to get young people interested, and they get paid about £2 an hour, I guess, £1.85 an hour, depends on the job. But again, we're looking for also local housewives that may not be able to take opportunities elsewhere, but that can come in for a couple of hours around lunchtime or tea time to help out with the bars and the coffee bars, and again cleaning and table clearance.
The rates of pay he quoted for school leavers then was more than many are on today, a decade later. In 1993, the arrival of more young recruits at Minehead was deemed newsworthy enough for it to appear on local television news bulletins. But 9 months later, with unemployment at 11% in Minehead, Butlins were once again announcing that up to 250 jobs were available. The company made it sound as though it was doing the town a favour.
There's a lot of unemployment within the county, so we feel as one of the major employers we must in the first instance focus downwards and try and get people in the area into employment.
And again this summer, at the height of the season in August, Butlins held a recruitment day at the local job centre. Applicants, including a West Eye View journalist, were told they'd be needed within days for all sorts of work.
I was expected to work 6 nights a week, every week, from 10 in the evening to 4 in the morning, for £66. And that's with no sick pay or holiday pay.
Perhaps that type of pay for working a night shift might explain why, 10 days after that recruitment drive, jobs were still readily available at Summer West World. Butlins insisted this had nothing to do with wage rates.
A major problem in attracting staff to this particular sector is that they are not prepared to work the unsocial hours. Staff can still be working on some centres at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then other staff may be required to be on duty at 7 o'clock in the morning to serve breakfast. Now, to get large numbers of staff, such as we require in Minehead, and we require 1,400 at the peak season, it's impossible to get those numbers locally. So unfortunately, we do have to advertise outside the immediate vicinity.
Perhaps there's an argument that you could attract them if you paid more money.
Well, as I said, I've been in the industry a long, long time, and money is not the priority.
Most of the local people that worked there were mainly managers and that. There was very few local people worked there. You get a few in the shops, but nowhere near the number of people they would have liked, you know.
Why do you think that was?
Well, I suppose the local people thought they could get a better job outside, like somewhere. Although it is difficult anyway down there, obviously. But most of the jobs outside are better than there anyway, or were then, you know.
Certainly, the rates of pay and seasonal nature of the job attracts young people. And earlier this year, Butlins were fined £25,000 for allowing a 20-year-old on his first day in the job to run the monorail in Summer West World. 2 trains crashed, injuring 7 holidaymakers. Magistrates said safety standards were appalling. Butlins admitted failing to ensure the safety of staff and visitors and not reporting the crash. Then, this summer, came revelations in the national press that drug-taking and dealing was rife amongst staff. A number of employees were dismissed. The contract for seasonal live-in employees contains a number of clauses which leaves them in no doubt as to their status. There's a 39-hour week with compulsory overtime. There's also a layoff clause.
Should the company find itself temporarily unable to provide you with work for any reason, then the company reserves the right to lay you off work or reduce your hours during all or part of the temporary period.
Layoffs are a feature of this particular industry. Unfortunately, you have to respond and staff up at times when the public are on site, and that is why that clause exists in the contracts.
Does that clause apply to middle and senior management such as yourself? I mean, if Minehead isn't full, does that mean that the centre director's pay is stopped or your pay is stopped for a couple of days?
Well, we're talking about entirely different circumstances, of course. My job and the job of my management is to make sure that we have business tomorrow. I'm planning and working for tomorrow, as are my management team. Staff are servicing the customer's requirements today.
Butlins has made use of that clause in the temporary staff's contract to lay them off during slack times. Often that's over the Christmas and New Year holiday period. Staff who live in are told they can stay on in their chalets, but they'll have to pay rent. Our research has revealed that that rent is paid by the taxpayer directly to Butlins. Because they're unemployed, the ex-Butlins staff can claim dole money and qualify for housing benefit, the latter administered by the District Council. Normally that benefit is paid directly to tenants, but if they approve, it can go straight to their landlord, Butlins. Records show that during one layoff, Butlins received over £10,500 for housing staff they'd laid off.
This is a practice which has existed within Butlins, but again it's a practice which we're reviewing and which I personally do not agree with. But opening the Butlins centres for 48 weeks a year will eradicate this problem.
Contract Clause 10.
Seasonal team members are not eligible for holiday pay. There is no additional payment for bank holidays.
It is a quirk of the contracts of employment at the moment, and I can categorically state it is not one I agree with. It's something I inherited, but it's something I intend to deal with.
Rates of pay and working conditions in the rest of Minehead's holiday industry are in stark contrast to those at Butlins. Peter Mascray is one of scores of hotel and guest house owners who's dependent on seasonal labour. He doesn't have a recruitment problem. Many of his staff, like 77-year-old Ivy Boone, have been with him for years. Some have worked at Butlins, but not for long. Like most other hoteliers, Mr Musgrave pays his staff around £4 an hour.
Let's put it this way, if a minimum wage was brought in, it wouldn't be too much of a hardship to me because I pay at or around what is likely to be the minimum wage. And a lot of the hotels, the private establishments within Minehead, pay similar scale to me, so not really a problem as far as that's concerned.
People never look at it as a full-time employment. Probably they can get better pay within the town itself. I can only obviously speak for the serviced accommodation, which is the hotels, B&Bs and the guest houses. And certainly when the minimum wage was there, we paid well over that, which I think was about, well, probably between £3.75 to £4, even probably more than that, depending on what the duties of the staff they employ.
So that sort of level, the sort of £4 an hour, you would say, is the current sort of rate in this part of the world?
Yes, yes, it is very much the going rate for the pay in this area.
It remains to be seen if this month's announcement of a revamp at Butlins will filter through to pay rates as well. The Summer West World will be transformed. A huge weatherproof canopy the size of Wembley Stadium will house a new entertainment complex with shops, cafes and restaurants, upgraded chalets for holidaymakers and staff. In total, over £40 million will be spent over the next 2 years. Many in the city think it's too little, too late, and Rank's share price dropped. But there was the usual emphasis on what good news this was for Minehead.
There are going to be benefits, not just benefits because the number of visitors will increase, which will help local trades, but also the benefits from the work and the contracts that will be given out over the next 2 years. So we see this investment as very positive for the local communities, and in fact the early presentations that we gave to the planning and local authorities have been very positively received indeed.
Minehead, once a retreat for the gentry, is torn between those who see Butlins as the mainstay of the local economy and those who wish it wasn't there. Local councillors accept that Minehead is now synonymous with Butlins.
I sincerely believe that without Butlins here, Minehead could well be an Ilfracombe, and Ilfracombe really has been in the doldrums for many years.
So you see them as a vital and integral part of the local economy?
I think it's, as some people would say, a necessary evil, but it's a private industry that's built up around Minehead. It's put Minehead on the map for sure.
a necessary evil?
Some people would say, yes. There are people in Minehead who don't think a lot of Butlins in particular.
Why would that be?
I think it's the feeling is that it brings the whole market down to some extent, but there is a big market in a certain aspect of the holiday industry, and they're catering very well for it.
No one could deny that Butlins contributes hugely to the town's economy. But at what price for the people who work there?
I'm sure a lot of people would be surprised that some rates of pay there were less than £2 an hour. And yet people like you are willing to go there and work and seem quite happy about it.
Why because it offers an escape. It's like living in a bubble when you live down there. It's not like the real world living down there, because it's the Butlins holiday world. Just go in the morning, do your work, what you're supposed to do. Then by the time you've done your work, it's time to go to dinner. You go to dinner, come back after having dinner, go back and then do your work. Then in the nights, there weren't any televisions or anything that they were hiring out. So then you just go and spend your money on the centre because you were bored.
The whole culture really is drink. You know, so you finish work and you go to there's a subsidised bar here for staff. And so the whole idea really is that staff are employed by Butlins, and then in their free time they spend their time in Butlins spending back their money.
Butlins has been awarded the National Investors in People standard by Somerset Training and Enterprise Council for, in their words, sustainable good practice in the employment, motivation and training of its workforce. When West Iview asked if investing in people took into account their pay, we were told that was a matter for the company and its employees.
My intention would never be to take advantage of young people and to pay under the rate that the whole industry offers. With the experience I have in the leisure industry, I know what the standard rates are around the industry. Some people pay more, some people pay less. But it would never be my intention to take advantage of those people who do not necessarily have the skills.
It offers a place for somebody to go when they haven't got anywhere else to go. And that's the way I see it. There's nothing forcing you to go there. You could either stay there and be on the dole or go there. Because there's no other jobs for young people, is there?